Good evening, everyone. This is Rob Bell, and you're watching Getting the Record Straight. This is our Black Rock and Soul edition where we talk about art and music and all those good things, particularly artists who are doing things in Philly. Although, as you know, we've had folks on who have really been all around the world. But as usual, well, before I say that, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. We're doing pretty well in that aspect, but we can also always use more. And so please do that. I'm really excited this evening talking with another treasure here in Philadelphia. She's a brilliant vocalist, jazz vocalist and composer and educator. Ruth Naomi Floyd. I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce her and share her bio with you, which is both fantastic and copious. She is the director of jazz studies at Cairn University. She's an artist or the artist in residence at Temple University. She has been awarded the Kimmel Center Jazz Residency for the 2019-2020 season or year at Biola University. She's got an honorary doctorate from Concordia College in New York, and her latest body of work, the Frederick Douglas Jazz Works, won the Best Vocal Recital Award at the San Francisco Classical Voice Audience Choice Awards in 2019. So I bring to you this evening, Ruth Naomi Floyd. Welcome. Good evening.
Hello, it is wonderful to be here. Thank you for the kind invitation to come in and talk.
Yeah, we're not going to ask you to sing on here, but if you feel moved, so be it, let it go. Well, I don't know how many people know you out there, but right before we came on, I was talking about having seen you quite some time ago. And of course, I was following you around. You didn't know that, but after I heard that CD with New Eyes, and that goes back a while now, I was so blown away with that I had to see and hear. But I did want to take a few minutes because people might not know that you're the daughter of another legend here in Philadelphia, former legend, Reverend Dr. Melvin Floyd, was of course a great anti-violence crusader, and we lost him, I think, a year ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so if you could share some words about your dad and his impact on the city, feel free to, please.
Sure, thank you for this opportunity. He passed away April 20th, so we just celebrated our first anniversary without him, and wow, yeah. Beautiful but lamentful but grateful, and I'm very grateful for him. I'm the second daughter of three daughters of Reverend Melvin and Elizabeth Floyd, who are both in heaven together now. But I love my father. He challenged me, and I loved what he did. He had won Cop of the Year during the Rizzo regime, and which was quite a feat, being African-American policeman. But he stood up to Rizzo, and he was chastised for coming to the precinct, a half hour early, reading his Bible. He was a minister, of course, and so they kind of got into it, and my dad stood his ground, and Rizzo liked that, and so he came back from the award ceremony in Buckingham Palace, England, and my mom put on the kitchen table the next morning at breakfast, what are you going to do about these youth? Between 5 and 7 young people between the age of 13 and 21 were killed each week to gang warfare. And so my dad packed us up and moved into one of the worst neighborhoods, which is now one of the best neighborhoods, gentrification, 1911 Mount Vernon Street, the art museum area, $1 million homes, and he said, I don't want to drive in and try and deal with the situation and drive out. I want to live, breathe, and work with them. And he put down his badge for his Bible because he realized at that point, the badge would get in the way. Even there, obviously, we know those horrific images of Black men being lined up against the wall during the Rizzo regime. And so he wanted to, he knew the badge would only get him so far. And so he worked and was instrumental in stopping gang warfare in Philadelphia. And then the drugs were imported, flown in to our neighborhoods. And so then he began a drug crusade and continued the streets, really like a modern day John the Baptist. And so he challenged each of my sisters, and certainly challenged me on what are you doing for the community besides what you're called to do. So if I'm called to be a vocalist, composer, justice worker, what am I doing when I'm not behind a microphone, when I'm not, on software composing? What am I doing besides that? And he wasn't lessening the impact of music. He was just saying, what else are you doing? So I'm grateful for that push and grateful for his legacy. I have to say this quick thing. He died at the beginning of COVID, and it hurt our hearts that so many people wouldn't be able to come and say goodbye and thank you. But the funeral director kept saying all week, we keep getting calls about the route you're going to the burial. I'm getting concerned because they cannot come to the burial either. And when we drove, Shelton Avenue was filled with people with signs and waving and saying, thank you, we love you. And we stopped because someone, didn't notice it was a funeral procession or said, I gotta go. And I rolled down the window, one man, tears streaming down his face, said, he saved me. I was on my way to be initiated by the gang. And he came to my school and showed these, DOA slides, dead on arrival. And he saved me. And therefore I'm a son, and I have a grandsons, and he saved me. And I just wanted to give tribute. So it was very moving, very powerful.
Fantastic.
Proud to be his daughter. Yeah.
I never got a chance to meet him. I don't think that I can remember, but I was reading so much right around it, right after he passed, and tremendous impact. And, you citing some of those situations, I can remember when it was two newspapers, two dailies at that time.
Yeah.
The Bulletin and the Inquirer. And I think the Bulletin used to post right on the inside, the second page, all the pictures of kids who had passed, I think that month. But, people have forgotten about that. And, you rarely hear that brought up about how deadly and tragic things were back then. But thanks so much for that information.
Sure. I do want to say that it was definitely a violent community. And there was a lot of violence in the community, let me say it correctly. And my father and mother got a lot of flack for taking 3 little girls. I was like 5 or 6. And I have to say it also was one of the safest places. So someone asked me yesterday, what's the difference between what we see violence now and what we saw? And I said, there was still a level of respect. They would come around and say something might be jumping off, get the babies inside. There was still some level of, but I felt so safe because it was still community. We were still giving to each other when someone was in need. My mother and I would go out and wash off the blood. So the mother's coming by to see where her son was slain, wouldn't have to see the blood and see flowers instead. So there were all these beautiful acts of kindness and love in the midst of surrounding violence. And so I encourage everyone to ask, why was gang warfare going on during that time? And why was it allowed to go on? And who benefited from those acts of violence?
And why is it still going on?
Yeah.
But that's a segue, though, because into your career and your musical life or artistic life, because there was also tremendous, just so much talent and so much music and so much greatness in the music at that time. So, tell us about how you got started musically and what your influences were and that kind of thing.
Sure, I was thrown into 12 feet of water of jazz. I grew up on my father's favorite singer was, Leontine Price. So we grew up gospel music and classical music and opera. And so, I had to sneak, I'm showing my age, a transistor radio to hear Michael Jackson or Stevie Wonder, but it was the community. I would say it was the same thing. I'm really grateful for this. We attended the same church that our great contralto Marian Anderson attended. And they did the same thing they did with her. They said, you have something unique. You need to sing. I was content singing on the choir, occasional solo. I was playing my flute and bassoon. I was fine. I wasn't thinking of a career in music. And they pushed me and it's beautiful to be pushed and to be endorsed and confirmed by the community around you, saying, "Oh, you have something," and that comes with a great responsibility. So I was at the greatest, the best high school in Philadelphia. You know what the next words are.
I have no idea.
Philadelphia High School for Girls.
Oh,
And Dimitri Kariga, powerful educator, had a jazz band, and he said, we need a jazz singer for an alumni event. And someone said, Ruth, I heard her at a church service just yesterday. And so I came and started singing these standards, and just these great standards. And I loved it. At the same time, I was in All City Orchestra playing bassoon, and we met at Girls High. So all the students would come to descend on Girls High for orchestra rehearsal, but there also was a jazz band and a choir and a band. And so I would see all these kids from Overbrook, from Martin Luther King, coming in, rushing, going to classrooms, starting to play these scales I never learned in European classical music, these Egyptian scales. And I was like, what is that? And so my thirst really started hearing, like, what is that? Diatonic 13ths, what? And so I started listening and learning, and and then started composing and was encouraged and pushed to do an album, and there we go. Yeah.
Now, did your training start with, you mentioned bassoon, and what was it, flute or piano?
Flute.
Okay, so where did you start learning that?
I started on the foundation instrument for my parents, where all three of us learned piano, and then went to two separate instruments. And sometimes we ate the same meal for a week and a half, because at all costs, music lessons were going to get paid first. And I'm really grateful for that.
So they were given in the community too? Was someone in the neighborhood that you went to?
Yeah, we went to Maplewood Mall, a music shop there, and started there piano, and then flute. And then I started bassoon in high school. I went to Mr. Kariga, and he said, "Do you want to do bassoon?" I said, "Yeah," and had the honor of studying with Del Negro, the contrabassoonist. He was a tough guy. He was a tough guy. So yeah, I'm grateful. We got to keep arts in the schools.
Absolutely.
Because my parents wouldn't have been able to afford another set of 3 extra instruments if we didn't learn part of it through the school system.
Right. No, that's a big thing, and it's overlooked entirely.
Yeah. And also Settlement Music School, of course, the Germantown branch. Yeah.
Right. So you do get a lot into sacred jazz, yes. Right? So can you talk about that a bit? How do you define that? Or
Sure. I was at my first concert in Paris, and a critic came, and she's speaking French. I didn't speak French. well. And someone translated and they said, the first half you sang standards, a lot of freedom, a lot of interesting choices. The second half you did gospel and spirituals. We saw your heart. You communicated the story. Work that out, because the next time you come, I need to hear it worked out or you won't get such a good review. I just thought, and so what she was saying, like that freedom of the music of jazz, I want that with the emotionalism and with the integrity of the second half. I mean, yes, we can sing a Flowers of Love something. I love singing that. I recorded it. But when you go to the spirituals and the gospel, man, you know, this is from my ancestors, the blood running warm in my veins. So I thought about that on the flight home, and I decided, you know, of course, there was Duke Ellington and several other who were doing sacred music. And I started studying what they're doing. And I thought, I'm going to start. It started with my first song, Mercy, from a talk I heard. And I started writing that, and I started writing my own music. And then with the help of attorney Keith R. McKinley, we started our first and only, our label. And we decided we wanted to do that. We wanted to share the gospel, not in gospel music genre, African American. We wanted to share the gospel in jazz improvisational music. So I was not singing gospel. I mean, a lot of people like gospel jazz. They're like, oh, she's singing gospel music with a couple jazz chords. Like, no, no, no. The music is jazz, and I'm singing jazz technique and skills, you know, skilled jazz singer. But the content is based on the gospel and also justice, the issue of justice. And so, yeah.
That's fantastic. You know, I had Warren Cooper.
Oh.
And, you know, I hear, well, him and Bobby Booker,
Yeah.
both helped bring that to fruition.
Yes.
You know, this sacred jazz, and it's not only bigger than a lot of people know, and I'm not sure why, you know, we don't embrace it and promote it more, because it's great. But I don't know that I've heard anything in the last 20 years, 15, 20 years, it's been more innovative and groundbreaking. I mean, the different things that I've heard, not only through them, but, you know, just through my own investigation, curiosity, has just been amazing how good what's coming out of that genre, that sacred jazz genre.
Yeah, it keeps pushing further. You know, there's just that freedom in it, and it's, you know, jazz musicians, just given the history of the music, have included a song or a spiritual or a hymn on their album. We'd be here all day listing them, right? But it's been beautiful to have a whole discography. And, you know, I say that with joy and a little sorrow, because my 5 CD as a leader will change. I won't have that it's a whole discography of sacred jazz when we finish recording the Frederick Douglas Jazz Works. But if you're gonna, you know, detour a little bit, that's the right way to detour, through Freddie D's, you know, words and music, words and talks and prophetic, you know, words. So yeah. Yeah.
So, since you mentioned that, why don't you tell us more about that, what that is and how that started? What is it? The Frederick Douglas Jazz Works, right?
Yes. Frederick Douglass had a beautiful baritone speaking voice and a beautiful singing voice. But I did a 10-year study, intense research. So this wasn't just Googling. This was, you know, when I would go to Europe, I would stay a couple days later and follow this path in Ireland, follow his path in Scotland and London and the UK and across the nation. And so been to New York Public Library, Schaumburg, the National Archives, talked with the family. I mean, in-depth research, scholars. And when I was done, I was like, this is really great, because I needed to know the root. Why is America still, well, hopefully we're struggling. In some cases, there's not an ounce of struggle at all, sadly. But with this issue of that we're not all created equal, that there's not this equality, that Black and brown skin is less than. And for me, for my spiritual tribe, that's heresy. That's an assault on Imago Dei. And so I couldn't understand why my Christian brothers and sisters of another hue were still struggling with this. This is not up for debate, you know? And so I went to the root. I wanted to, of course, start with Harriet Tubman, but she was doing the work and running. So I went with Frederick Douglass. You can't get more root than that. And so into the 10-year research, and I wrote an odd piece. I thought it was kind of odd, composing one night, double basses and voice. Put that away. The next day I was going to end officially in my research by reading my favorite speeches. I had a long train ride and, 5-6 hours. So I was reading these speeches. And this rhythm, one of the speeches had the rhythm of this tune I wrote the night before. So I looked and I was like, wow, it just fit like a glove. And I didn't have to change the words or anything. So I thought, oh, that's nice. I'll write 2 more and it'll be a 3-song cycle. Well, the music kept coming. So we have almost too much music to record now. But Frederick Douglass Jazz Works is a body of jazz improvisational music, straight ahead jazz improvisational music where the lyrics are included based on the life, the prophetic words, his quotes, and his speeches, and his autobiographies, 3, about what was going on at that time and still is going on. And so every lyric that I sing, it's Frederick Douglass words. No, I'm not adding, I'm not taking away, I'm not interpreting. Every lyric you hear me sing are his actual words. And that was a heavy burden, but it was a beautiful burden. So we finished round 1 and then COVID. So we're looking forward to go to round 2 of recording and then putting it out. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. And where did you do that? Was the recording done here or,
No, it's right outside of New York at a studio. And we really had amazing time. And it sounds different than my other body of work. It definitely, we have violin because Frederick Douglass played the violin. His grandson was one of the first concert African-American soloists. And so then we have traditional quartet, and then we're looking for vibraphones and then hopefully banjo and washboard, so yeah. It's been really beautiful to go there and record. We're looking forward to going back. Our musical director, Matthew Parrish, has just done a phenomenal job of keeping the integrity of that music. And I'm so glad for the first time in a sense that that I can, there's a lot of responsibility of carrying these prophetic words of Frederick Douglass, and you want to do it right. I think he would have liked jazz. He certainly loved classical music and African-American spirituals, but it's great to have a team to work with to do that and keep the integrity of it.
Was it tough pulling them together and getting them to share in the vision, so to speak?
Not at all. I mean, we started with the 3-song cycle. We performed that, and I will not tear up. The next day, we did something on a Sunday. And that Monday, each one of them called independently, not knowing that the other called, and said, "You're on to something with this music, this 3 songs. You're on to something. Keep writing, keep doing it. There's something there." And it was just powerful. And I love my quartet, I'm a G-Town girl, so I'm going to trash talk a little bit. And I'm a sports fan. I'm a Philly sports fan. So, we have to trash talk. But, my quartet is killing. So, these cats, they don't have a gig mentality. They walk on a stage and how can we communicate this message? How can we interpret what Ruth wants to do and bring our own voice? And man, it's been powerful to work with at least for the quartet, 4 like-minded artists who bring it all and also understand the history and what I'm communicating. So yeah.
And what are the instruments?
It is quartet is reeds with Keith Loftus from New York. Then we have Mark Prince, my longtime drummer, who I love and adore. I just give him direction because he can just fill in, I'm not writing all these charts for him. I give him a line, we talk about it, and he goes and just so stunning. Such a dynamic drummer, can play pianissimo and still have that heart, boom, that pulse, pianissimo, and then we have our music director, Matthew Parrish, on double bass. And then we have Aaron Graves, who's, Aaron Graves, fantastic, on piano.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you said when do you think you'll finish recording and get to the...
Oh, Lord. Well, my whole discography, we raised funds. So I am hoping we'll be able to record during the summer or the fall. We're waiting for a couple amazing guest artists. The instrumentation's the octet, so it's just not quartet on the record, it's an octet with voices and a lot of other things. So we're holding out for 1 or 2 that are worth holding out for, my Lord, my God. But if that doesn't work, then we'll just proceed without them. But my quartet's intact. And so hopefully around the fall we'll record and put it out early next year. We hope so. Yeah. But people have to feel comfortable, playing music together. Yeah.
We certainly hope so. Before we leave, talk about the justice work you've done. I know you've been involved in a number of causes and issues over the years. So if you can expound on that a little bit.
Sure. Well, following my father's, directive, I saw my very first musical mentor, who was a director of music at one of the places and spaces where I used to sing. And he just took me under his wing and just really pushed me early on. He was so young too. And unfortunately, he was attacked. And in the attack, he contracted HIV and AIDS. And this was in the early 90s, where you didn't know how it was contracted. It wasn't confirmed. And I was very sad to see how the universal church, well, I would say American church, responded. And then some tribes, Christian leaders responded that this was a judgment in hell. And so I had the privilege and the honor, when on his deathbed, he said, do something about this, Ruth. So I became part of Hope Ministry, really a small 3-person shop. And we began giving the gift of presence to those affected and infected with HIV and AIDS. And this is the early 90s. So it was, at that point, a white man gay disease. Think of the film Philadelphia with, Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks. And so at that time, there was one funeral home that took the AIDS Corp. There was one hospital that had volunteer work at Graduate Hospital, is no longer there. Their nurses and doctors would volunteer another shift to aid them. This is real early. And we gave the gift. And one of our specialties was Death Watch, because many of them would die alone. Their families didn't want to come because they didn't know how it was contracted. But also, even when it was confirmed how it was contracted, they had different feelings about it. And so we were able to do Death Watch. And we were doing 3 to 4 a week, and did that for 10 years. And then I really thought through, like, for my father, he was a long ranger, and I saw the effects of that and the loneliness of doing this work alone. So I partnered with Esperanza Health Center and took the Hope team there, and we began to work and feel supported. And then music became more in demand. So then I did more of a consultant. So from testing in prisons to recovery houses to educating particularly early on the Black church, of what this disease was, and certainly when the demographics changed, helping to educate them. So I've been involved in all the areas of HIV/AIDS, and still am, and I count it one of the great joys and privileges of my life.
Well, speaking of joys and privileges, this certainly has been for me. When did this come out? Well, we said 97, right?
Right, yeah.
Was this your first CD?
This is my second. That's my second. The first one, yeah.
Because I'm still on it, you know.
Oh wow! Do you have to? I have to send the rest to you.
Yeah. I'll be happy to purchase them. I have so much stuff because I put out. Might as well make this announcement. I put out a playlist on YouTube twice a week, and it's called the Black Rock and Soul Review. But in about, I don't know, 3 to 4, about a month, I'm going to launch. I'm going to kind of, liquidate that, so to speak, and start streaming so that it's, I have an internet radio program station, if you will. And it'll be the same Black Rock and Soul.
Oh, please, I want to be.
But it'll be accessible through my website, and then through the Getting the Record Straight website, and I'm sorry, the Black Rock and Soul website. And you'll be able to, listen just like you're listening to a radio station, but we'll be progressive, thoughtful, funky, beautiful, romantic, jazzy music, the way we used to back in the 70s. And the thing is, there's so much that this came out in 97. There's so much stuff that has been happening that never makes it to commercial radio. And so that's really my mission. So keep an eye or ear out for that. That'll be happening. I'll certainly let you know. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time. It's really been an honor for me and a pleasure.
Thank you for reaching out to me. Thank you for all that you do. And I had a chance to go. I'm a subscriber now, but I went on YouTube, and thank you for the diversity of the topics and the musicians and the artists you bring is really beautiful and profound. So thank you for allowing us to share our artistic gifts, and you're a blessing.
And I'm trying to build, thank you so much. I'm trying to merge that music and justice thing, which has always been at the forefront of what we do. So thank you so much.
Right? Yeah. How can it not be? That's how we arrived here. We're dragged here, So it comes with the story of America. Yeah.
Well, look, let's stay in touch and continue to share what we're doing. So again, thanks so much. Take care.
You too.
All right.